180 and we're at the speed down to 2,500.
Yep, point wherever you reduce speed to 180.
BlackBox.
Little angels on earth.
That's right. Oh, we're recording now. All right, so I just got the thumbs up that we're recording, and I want to welcome everybody back to the BlackBox, KP's BlackBox. It's been, we'll give ourselves a clap there, very softly. Maybe that'll come out with higher audio, Jordan. You heard it well over there, okay. But we've had about 4 weeks off because I got a new member of the family now, Stevie Rose, who's our 5th grandbaby.
Nice.
And off camera, Jennifer and I were just talking about how special our kids are. So
Absolutely.
Today I have a special guest and a great human being who was referred to me by another friend of mine, Brent Montella. Shout out to Brent.
Woo, love Brent.
Yeah, Brent. I'm sorry, Brent. I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry, Brent. I did not mean to hit boo. I did not mean to boo you, Brent.
No, Brent, he'll like that.
The audience changed their mind. It's a lot like politics, right? People are just all over the place.
Yep, all over.
So we're going to talk about politics today with Jennifer. She's like, great.
Oh, I know. Can't wait.
Yeah. So Miss Jennifer Franklin, who is a mother extraordinaire herself. You spent years in PTA. Mm-hmm. Is it still called PTA?
PTSA.
PTSA. Mm-hmm. What's the S
Student.
now? Student.
Yes.
There we go.
Yep. Parent, teacher, student.
I've been out of school way too long. But very active in the community. You serve on the Virginia Beach School Board now. Yes. So thank you for your service there.
Thank you.
And I'll also give you my regrets because I know parents can be a little wild sometimes. Yeah. So we'll talk about that today, but you're also a mortgage loan officer.
Yes.
Been in the mortgage business how long now?
22 years. Which is really hard to believe since I'm only 29.
Yeah, since you're 20. Right, I was going to,
exactly.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So.
Yeah.
Good for you. You were a child entrepreneur,
That's right?
At 7 years old, just getting it. And so we'll talk about a little bit about the mortgage business.
Yep.
Since we try to bring together in KP's BlackBox, Jennifer, we want to bring together financial information along with just people who are living life, and how are you living life at its best, and then being a professional in the community, but still serving also in the community. So I think that's why Brent said you'd be a great person to interview and talk to.
He's a great person. So.
Yeah. Let's not blow him up too much. That head of his expands quickly. So but we love you, Brent. We love you. So thank you so much for being on the show today. And one of the things that's really cool about you that I found out is that you are a veteran.
Yes.
And so
24 years.
Yes, thank you for your service. You were in the Navy.
Yes.
And I like to brag that I was in Marine Corps.
Thank you.
Which is
hoorah.
Yeah, hoorah. Mm-hmm. It's the Department of the Navy.
Yes.
The men's department.
Hey, there are women there now.
I know. Great women in the Marine Corps. Yeah, so I always like to tease my fellow sailors with that little jab. But so you were a sailor for 24 years, and one of the things we like to do on our podcast is toast our military in every episode. We have some special people that not only serve, but the families that are serving alongside of them.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
and it's big, especially in deployments.
Yes.
My daughter-in-law right now, my oldest son Noah is out to sea for about 4 months with the Coast Guard. They have like love boat cruises, and it's just really chill. No, they work hard.
They do work hard.
But it is not only a commitment for him, but it's a commitment for Sarah and then her 2 children. Their 2 children.
I was on both sides of that. So my ex-husband had deployed for many cruises. Wow. And so I can tell you that, what's interesting, because I've also deployed, and it's interesting because it is hard leaving your family and leaving, your community. But, you have so much focus at the time. Mm-hmm. You've got your job to do. You've got the reason you're deploying.
Right.
So, but the hard part is it's almost harder when you're left behind. You've got to figure out how to redeploy your life, especially if you have kids, and just figure all that stuff out, and then they come back and they're like, okay, I'm ready to jump back in. And,
you're like, how do we integrate that right back into normal life?
Yeah, exactly. So, Yeah,
So
that
let's
could be
give a
struggle.
toast to
Absolutely.
yourself,
Love it.
and myself, and every person out there. Your camera's right there.
right
So we toast you, our fellow brothers and sisters
That's right.
in the military. Thank you for your service.
Right.
We appreciate you. And Johnny Walker, I've been trying to get Johnny to send us some Blue Label. That's all we're asking for, Mr. Walker.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
We've gone through about 3 of these bottles now, and I love Johnny Walker Blue Label, so it's
Nice.
my favorite spirit.
Nice plug.
Yeah, so
I think Johnny needs to give you some.
Yeah, we're
That's right,
plugging them.
yeah.
Like, just I don't need any money from you. Just
Just maybe a few bottles here
a few
and there.
bottles here and there would be awesome. And our troops love it too. I mean,
Yes.
I have a lot of folks from my son to. We have some folks in our client base in the special warfare community, and
Yeah.
so it's always important to have a bottle of Blue Label around
Absolutely.
when those guys come around.
And hats off to all of them.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and we're right here in the hotbed of the special
Yes.
warfare community,
Yeah,
right, in Virginia Beach. So.
Yeah, and I love that you do that because, the military, I don't think that people understand the unique sacrifices. We obviously know that, the clear and, present sacrifices, the obvious ones, but, but it is those sacrifices, leaving your family,
Yeah.
having to jump back in, reacclimate yourself to, normal life again. And it's a lot of the small things that you deal with in the military, more so than, obviously the big things. They're
Right.
pretty overwhelming as well. But it's a lot of the small things that you just don't
Yeah.
think about that are the real sacrifices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I can, let's start with your military career. So, 24 years. I mean, that's a big commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's crazy. So I came from a small town in Pennsylvania. I'm adopted, by the way. So my tagline is
shout out to people who adopt too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Love adopted parents.
Yeah.
And so I was adopted. I was 3.5 when I came over from an orphanage in Korea. And
No
I was
way.
raised by a Pennsylvania Dutch family, a nice, wonderful family, actually. So lucky, knock on wood. And they really gave me a future. And but I always like
Beautiful.
to say my tagline is I know more about sausage than I do kimchi. Because I don't know.
I actually like kimchi.
I've actually can't think that I've ever had kimchi.
I never knew
so-
rotten cabbage could taste so good. Right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty good.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't sound so great to me, but I don't.
I'm a Marine. I eat
That's
crayons,
right.
so you're right.
Anything that you can put salt on.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But so basically, I had gone to a college for a year, but then my boyfriend at the time had decided he was going to up and join the military. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna, go do the world
See the
together.
world together.
Of course that didn't happen.
Big
because,
gray
yeah.
ship. Were you on an aircraft carrier?
Well, actually, so I was in a bunch of different squadrons. I was aviation.
Oh, okay.
So
Air-
I was in some squadrons, and
Okay.
and so we obviously did not make it, my boyfriend and I, and so when did the whole gamut, did 11 years active duty, and really proud of that. And then I decided that why stop now?
Yeah.
I was a single mother at the time when I got out, so I didn't want to go, and I was headed back to sea duty. So it was kind of one of those decisions. At the 11-point mark,
Right.
you're like, what do I do with my career
Yeah.
here? So,
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So, but I was a single mom, and I didn't want to go back to sea duty with my daughter, still being young. So I stayed in the reserves, and I retired in the reserves, which, as a former career counselor, I would say to all of those people that are questioning whether or not they should do that, absolutely do it. It's wonderful to be able to retire.
So were you in during the craze of the onset of the war with 9/11 and
Oh yeah, I was actually going. I was in New Orleans at the time, going through career
Okay.
counselor school.
Oh, wow.
When 9/11
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
wow. So
Yeah.
what was that like for you when 9/11 happened? Let's go back there for a few minutes. And do you remember where you were and what you were doing?
Yeah, I was actually in New Orleans at career counselor school at the
Yeah.
time. So I was with a bunch of my military folks. And 9/11, probably like the pandemic, just one of those times in your life you'll always remember where you were.
Right.
Because it looked like a movie was unfolding, right? I mean,
Yeah, I was on my couch in our first house in Christopher Farms watching the Today Show, and I just happened that day to not have early morning appointments. I was just hanging out with
Yeah.
Kathleen and our small kids at the time. And when the first plane hit the building, I went, they were trying to say maybe it was an accident. And I'm like, no.
It didn't look real.
Airliners do not crash in the buildings.
Yeah.
It's just those pilots are highly trained, and that
Oh, yeah.
to me had terrorist attack written
All
I mean,
over.
it was just like
Yeah.
perfect, perfectly flown into the building in an unperfect kind of way,
Yeah.
or imperfect. But yeah, that morning was so surreal.
It is. Yeah. And it took the rest of the day, right? I mean, all you could do was watch,
Yeah.
and see what happened, and
What people tend to forget, Jennifer, is that we've been at war for 21 years
Yes.
now. I mean, it's still not officially over, even though it's calmed down quite a bit. And we know this just from our client base. There's still a lot of activity
oh yeah,
that just goes unnoticed, unreported, because we're reporting,
yeah.
the political side of COVID and
Sure.
all of that stuff. But so you were there in career counselor school. What was ever thought? Oh, okay, they're going to pull me out and send me over
Oh, yeah.
to
Oh yeah, for sure.
Afghanistan or Iraq. What was going through your head at that time?
Just disbelief, really, for that day. But of course, after that, we were on lockdown on the bases, and so yeah, there was a lot of.
Wasn't it odd during that period that there were for 3 days, no planes in the sky? Mm-hmm. And I never realized how quiet it is.
Oh yeah.
Especially around here, like even the F-18s at Oceana were grounded, and there was only select squadrons that were doing patrols. But then when the jets started up again, you're like, okay, this is a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And things are changing.
And you kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You just weren't sure when. But yeah, after that happened, I'm like, wow, this is this. They just unleashed.
Yeah. Holy hell.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
I mean,
because
yeah.
it was, you don't want to see any human life lost. However, there are people out there who just want to do evil on us,
Yeah.
on our society, because of our way of life, and because we're the most blessed nation in the world.
We are.
By the way, there was I'm going to give a shout out to a young lady who sang the national anthem at the NHL game. Do you remember which game that was, Jordan? It was just the other night.
I don't.
Bruins.
I can look it up.
Yeah, you got to go watch this. It
Okay, I
brought
haven't.
tears to my eyes. So if you need a good
Just
cry,
just the rendition, or
the rendition
Uh-huh.
of the national anthem, but the rendition was the entire stadium singing with her.
Oh my gosh, that's
And she-
amazing. Yeah.
it was so overwhelming for her.
Yeah.
She stopped and just turned the mic out.
I don't even have to watch
Yeah,
it.
isn't that cool? And it was just, I was like, you know what? We need that right
Yes.
now. I needed to see that because I was
Yeah.
feeling really bad about my fellow Americans. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there still is some red-blooded Americans
Yeah.
who love this country with all of its problems.
Well,
it's
it's
a great
really
place.
it's an interesting dynamic that I have because being an immigrant myself, having this opportunity, I didn't necessarily join the military for the right reasons, but I realized how patriotic I was during my time in the military because I'm so grateful. I mean, who knows where I'd be today if one, I hadn't been adopted. So thank you, Mom and Dad. But two, the military just gives you a lot of focus.
Yeah.
And prioritizes your life. And, I remember when I got out of boot camp, my CC, my company commander, said to the whole audience, the whole group of parents, we did in 6 weeks what you couldn't do in 18 years. and that is bring some discipline and focus to these young kids, right? So it was just a great experience. And of course, it's challenging and it's hard, but I think what I loved about it is that it really shows you what you're made of. It shows you what your grit is, what that level of grit is.
That's great.
Because you have all kinds of situations. I mean, I remember falling into, I was trying to throw, they left without us tossing the line on the boat. And, I was standing there on the pier and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to get caught in the propeller. So I threw it as hard as I could and I fell in the water in January in North Carolina.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Morehead City?
Morehead City. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And in North Carolina. And first of all,
Jeez.
when you fall into that water, when it's that cold, you don't realize. I mean, I swam back to the pier, but I could not climb up the pier, so they had to.
You're just like exhausted
dead weight.
already.
Yeah, dead weight. Dead weight pulled just me out, and took like 2 or 3 guys to.
But some of that boot camp training when you jump into the pool, just to give you probably, you didn't even know it was rote memory in your mind that you were practicing survival skills.
Yes. Yes.
That you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this has really happened. I trained
Yeah.
for this. Now I'm in the water.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Don't panic is number one.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't want to suck in all
Maintain a
that
clear
stuff.
head.
That's right.
Don't panic. Think
Yeah.
about your situation.
Yeah.
But and I've really, in fact, I'm hoping to write a book because, I have learned that the challenges of your life are really what prepare you for your future.
Yeah.
It's not the easy times. The easy times you kind of sit back, you enjoy it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't teach you how to push through. And, through my whole experience as a single mom and then, just building a career. I mean, being in the military as a woman, it's a little
Yeah.
tough sometimes. And, being in a mortgage banking community, when I first got in, it was very male dominated. And so, you kind of have to have some tough skin.
Yeah, right.
And I think that with all of that experience, it really does show you, though, what you're made of and how to succeed.
Yeah.
And I like to tell people that because, everyone has a reason why they can't succeed. I'm like,
Yeah.
put your head down, put one foot in front of the other, and just get to the next day.
Yeah.
Figure out what you do. Just do it. Do what you have to do that day. Get to the next day, and eventually, because you're walking the right road, you'll get there. So
Yeah, there's a Chinese proverb that simply states that in order to take a long journey, you just have to take the first step.
Yep, a journey 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
A single step.
Yeah, yep.
I'll butcher any quote.
That's okay.
Thanks for correcting me on that. But I was.
I say that
lost
a
on
lot.
it.
So.
But yeah, I mean, it's so true. And
Yeah.
one of the things I've talked about in previous podcasts is I remember Kathleen and my wife and Sarah, my daughter, make these amazing chocolate chip cookies, and they still
And you
don't
did
remember this
meeting?
incident. I know that's. We need to start doing that along with the Johnny Jordan. Yeah, we'll do cookies.
Okay.
But these cookies are amazing. But I was sharing with another guest that you never know how a missing ingredient is important
Yes.
until it's missing.
That's right.
And so in this one instance, I remember Sarah saying that they had forgot to put salt in the chocolate chip cookies. And you're thinking, salt? Why would... So this little ingredient made such a difference
Yeah.
in the flavor
Yes.
and the lasting flavor of that. But if you have salt by itself, you're kind of like, yeah, this isn't that great.
Right.
But when you put salt in anything, the enhancement of that,
Yep.
that food that you're tasting is amazing. And that to me is like failure. Failure is like salt.
Yeah.
That when you have bad things happen in your life, you it's not that I wish that on anyone, but when you have a failure, especially if it's something that hits you at your core and hits the belief system, challenges your belief system, the real flavor of that is how are you going to behave?
That's right.
Because the behavior is the manifestation of the belief, right? So you got this belief system, something bad happens, you go, well, man, I probably shouldn't have done it. Well, I don't know. The belief system's probably good. How you behave, how you respond to that. Like 9/11, there were many firemen that went
Yes.
into that building while other people were running out. There is a special breed of people who will go just say, you know what? I've got my training, I've got this background, I've got this situation that has taught me, like falling off the pier. What's my behavior? I can drown or I can fight to see another day.
That's right.
And I think that mindset has to be there in any profession in order to excel, whether it be a profession or marriage or raising children.
It's all hard.
Yeah.
But you have to, exactly. And by the way, hats off to firefighters and police officers as well.
Oh, and we've got some of the best right here in
Yes.
Virginia Beach.
Oh my
don't we?
gosh.
Great
So
guys.
great. Yeah, so great.
Guys and gals.
Hats off to them too. But I totally agree. I was actually, my husband showed me this clip of America's Got Talent. And, this woman walks up, very, very skinny. She just was telling about her story, the fact that she had just gone through cancer. So she wrote this song. And the song, I think it was called It's Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so she sang this very pretty song, but what she said at the end was what was really powerful. She said, I have a 2% chance of living.
Wow.
And so she's like, this is basically my dream here. And she said, you can choose. I'm going to butcher this, and I wish I wouldn't because.
Well, it makes me feel better that you're butchering.
Okay, good. She said something like, if you wait until the difficulty goes away to be happy, you're always waiting.
Oh,
Life
wow.
can always be difficult, no matter
Right.
what you're, so
That's great.
so it's a choice. It's a choice every day. You can choose to prosper, or you can choose to not.
Yeah.
You can choose to succeed, or you can choose to not. Every day you can choose to be happy or courteous, or you
Right.
can choose to not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people have to remember is you have your own choice to do whatever you want to with your life.
Yeah.
So do it.
So
Get out there and do it.
We were talking through the military. I want to fast forward, and we'll come back to other segments of your life and your professional career.
Yeah.
But I want to take this military experience of dealing with lots of people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
From an adopted Korean woman
Yes.
with a Dutch, Pennsylvania
Dutch. Yep.
Pennsylvania Dutch family, showing up in the military with the kid from Brooklyn,
Yeah.
the Italian kid, the Irish kid, the California surfer.
Yeah.
So you got this melting pot of people
Yeah.
that you're in life with for 24 years.
Yeah.
Good, bad, and indifferent. Do you think that really helped prepare you to be a school board member and deal
No.
with parents from?
I don't know if there's anything that really prepared me for this, but it's been a very interesting experience since January. Well, actually, the whole campaign process, all of that. But I would like to say, so again, just tell you a story in boot camp, because growing up, I was the only Asian in my whole town for probably until I was
I can imagine.
in middle school,
Yeah.
right? It was, we're a very small town in rural Pennsylvania. And so that probably helped me with the military because, of course, you know how adolescents are, how
Yeah.
kids are, they can be mean and,
Yeah.
and I got.
So were you teased and picked on for looking different than
It's interesting because
the dudes with the cool beards? Yeah.
when I grew up, those kids I knew, but then it
Yeah.
was always like when I went to middle school, then they
Yeah.
didn't grow up with me. So they're like,
Yeah.
why do you look like that?
Yeah.
Or high school, again, the whole thing. So it's always, but I like to tell people that, what I feel like my job is, if I have, because, I'm not going to say that people can't be, have judgmental or sometimes maybe racist.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist,
Yeah.
but I feel like there is a job that you have to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
That's how I like to approach that subject because
It's a good outlook.
I feel like, I had a couple, an older couple. In fact, he had a Vietnam hat on when I went back home. And we were in a small diner, again, in this rural Pennsylvania. And I literally heard his wife say, "What is she doing here?"
Oh, wow.
and he said, "Well, I guess she's eating dinner like us, And so, and if my mom, who was, I grew up Mennonite, which is a very pacifist type of religion. But if my mom wasn't there, I would have walked up to him and said, "Thank you for your service. I also served," and made them change their mindset about
Yeah.
me because they have an idea. Or a lot of people, when I'm talking to them on the phone, they don't know that I look like this, but then
Yeah.
they meet me and they're like, "Oh, okay," kind of readjust.
Yeah.
But which now I can laugh about. But as a kid, it's harder because you're just trying to figure yourself out.
Yeah.
But now I really feel like it's
I have that effect on little babies. They see me and they're like,
Oh, yeah,
oh,
maybe.
what?" Yeah. Even my grandson Isaac sometimes is like,
He's like, "Where's your hair?"
yeah, whoa, that's my grandfather. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I really feel like it's part of my mission to go out there and make people understand that it's okay.
Yeah.
And you talked about the military, and being a melting pot. Absolutely, it's a melting pot. When I was in boot camp, we had a situation. There was a gal from I don't even know where. Let's just say Alabama or somewhere, but down further south, and I might have been the only Asian she ever met, but she didn't understand, even though I talk like this, there was a clear-cut, uncomfortable feeling around me. And so, of course, the company commander put us both as rack mates, and we had to work together. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because at the end, we might not have liked each other, but we learned to work as a team.
Yeah.
And that's what the military is about. You have one mission, one focus, and all this other stuff, that's just...
Wow, that's an
Crap.
interesting,
Yeah.
but compelling argument for just getting in community with people. I think is really what you're coming down to is,
Absolutely.
how do we find what's good in someone versus looking for what's
Right.
bad in someone or what's different. I guess embrace the difference.
Absolutely.
So
because we're all different.
Yeah, absolutely right. So when you come back to now as a school board member, and I'm going to ask you this because I've seen it a lot lately in social media, and the first rule of thumb is just don't pay attention to social media.
Right.
But we're going to talk about it.
Right.
And it may be a little uncomfortable for some people, and we might have people send me messages and be ugly about it. But what I've seen come up in culture lately is dealing with the critical race theory.
Yes,
And
I knew you were going to bring that up.
yeah. So it's here. We're going to put it on the table. We'll talk about it. How have you seen that effect so far since January? Are you seeing that become an issue in the Virginia Beach school system?
It's a national
issue with parents, and everybody wants to know, what are you teaching our kids?
It's a national issue. I mean, let's face it. It's in just about every newspaper, every, no matter what you watch, I mean, they're talking about it. My personal opinion about Virginia Beach, which, by the way, I just want to let all Virginia Beach residents know, I raised 3 kids through the Virginia Beach school system. And I thought it was great. I mean, I thought they get a great education. I was part of PTSA, so I got to know the teachers really well and the principals. I've always thought the VBCPS has been a great division.
You know what's interesting about that, though? I would hear other parents disagree with you. But here's why I'm going to come to your defense. I think it was great, and your experience was great for one core reason.
I was involved.
You were involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was PTSA president at Kempsville High School, and when a parent would come to me, and interestingly enough, I had gone from the Cox district where my daughter had graduated, where there were
Cox Falcons. My wife was a Cox grad.
No. I'm saying great district, lots of volunteers at that district. Kempsville is a little bit different type of community. In fact, let me just say, you will have to kick me out of Kempsville. I love Kempsville, but it's just a different community. It's that we've got a lot of dual working spouses.
So latchkey kids maybe is
I mean, but it's just a different kind of community, and so we had less volunteers on PTSA at Kempsville. So when I had a parent come up to me at an open house or something and volunteer some suggestions, which they usually do, I said, I love your energy. I love it. So what committee are you going to serve on? Because I'll put you on that committee, and then you can be part of the solution. And they're like, oh, well, no, I don't have time for that, So I said, well, that's a problem because, we all work, So, once you're ready, I'm ready to implement that suggestion, though, because it takes all hands to make these solutions work. And so I totally agree with that. The more involved you get, if you have a complaint or something that's happening, let people know. The superintendent says that all the time to me when I'll have a constituent email and say, hey, what's going on with this? And Dr. Spence will say, okay, well, give me this situation. I need a specific so I can, and I would say that to the community, to parents. Let us know specifics. Let us know how we can actually be part of your solution. Instead of just giving us a broad complaint, give us what happened. Let us know exactly what we need.
One of the things I learned in some training from actually Jack Canfield here, the Success Principles. If you've never read this book,
I keep
it on the table all the time as a reminder to folks to. It's one of my favorite business books, but more of a life principle book as well, I would say. Yeah. And he's the same guy that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
love that. Yeah.
Super great guy. Plug for Jack Canfield there. We'll put the book back out there again for people as a reminder.
Let's see if we can get some more books sold.
Yeah, and the book is I think 10, 12 years old now.
Yeah.
But one of the things he said that really I've kept in my brain housing group for years now is what's interesting about human beings is that we only complain about things that we can actually change. Mm. You rarely hear people complain about something that they can do nothing about. Mm. He gave this example. He's like, have you ever seen an old man crouched over with a cane, walking slowly down this street, cursing gravity? You don't. It's like... He accepted the fact that age has done this to him and that over time, your bone structure just can't support the downward pressure of gravity. Yeah. Well, in that sense, we go, oh, that poor man, he's dealing with gravity. Yeah. On the other side of the coin, we celebrate gravity with people like Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Jordan defied gravity, right? Could jump over buildings, it seemed like, to dunk a basketball. And it's perspective. I think that's what it goes back to, that this person who's going to make a complaint about what's going on in the school system, okay, well, what are you doing to be involved in the school system? Are you being the squeaky wheel that gets the grease? And the best place to be a squeaky wheel is on a committee, I would assume, right?
Exactly. And and that's really one of the reasons I was telling you earlier, I kind of naively thought that school board would be an extension of my volunteer work on PTSA, which I was one of those crazy parents who loved, doing goodie bags until midnight, for the teachers. So I just kind of thought it would be an extension of that. And it's been very different than what I expected.
How do you decide to do that, and how do you get elected? So what was...
Well, interesting.
What was the compelling thing to get you there, and then what was your campaign?
So I actually know quite a few people just through, my business as a mortgage banker, and I also teach fitness classes and, all this other stuff. So just talking to different people, I had come across, Vicki Manning, who was actually on the school board already.
Okay.
And, I had done some professional work with her as well. And so she was just like, hey, we need, people on the school board. And so it just kind of like sparked something. I was like, I don't know, do I really want to do this? And she's like, no. So, she walked me through the process, and, I'm just very thankful to her for that. And, and I think that we were just looking for, someone, more people on the board who had, a different point of view, because it's kind of lopsided right now, I guess, some people would say. And so
lopsided how? What do you mean? Old white men?
No, actually, there's no men on the board.
There's not?
My person,
the person my kids have been out of school for so long, I don't even, that's unfortunate to say. But.
My challenger was actually the incumbent for 20-some years for the Kempsville community, and he was the only man on the board at the time. And, of course, because I'm there, I had defeated him. But
you crushed him.
No. But I was fortunate enough to win. But it's been an interesting process, because first of all, the campaign process is so much more than I expected.
How many people will vote in that? I mean, I've looked at the numbers.
We have almost 500,000 residents in Virginia Beach.
But you only have maybe a few thousand votes, right?
I think I probably need to look at the numbers again. I can't exactly remember, but I think that. Each person has probably the top person had maybe 12,000 or 15,000 votes.
Yeah, that's horrible, but I also kind of get it, like at a school board position, because it's on
the down ballot, so a lot of people just go to vote for the big ticket items.
I in complete transparency, when I voted this year, I went through my ballot, or last year, I went through our ballot, and I was like,
I don't know.
Your name was probably on the ballot.
It was.
You're elected now, so I'm assuming you made it.
So the down ballot, but I would say that the down ballot is so important. Now, this year, just to give everybody a little bit of education, the way it was, back when we got elected in 2020, the whole city of Virginia Beach could vote for city council and for
Across
school board. It doesn't matter what district you're in.
Yeah.
You could vote for any district. You do all that. It could be changing in the 2022 election. So there's a lot of talk right now between city council and school board about how that might change. We might go to something similar to Norfolk, where they have wards. And, so we wouldn't have everybody voting necessarily for one district. But because it was like that in 2020, you're going all across Virginia Beach, trying to talk to people.
Yeah. So getting the word out when you got elected, I mean, the strategy there when you're, trying to get elected for a school board position, and let's say, 500,000 people, 12,000 people voting, or casting a vote for you.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you get the message out? How did you talk to people and compel them to cast a vote for you?
Well, again, luckily, 22 years in mortgage banking, my fitness classes, taxes. I just think, I had more name recognition than I thought, of course, and then going out there and doing events, talking to people, listening to them, I think that was one of the big things. Is I was
What do
truly
you-
interested.
What do you run on though as a school board member? What can you tell a Virginia Beach citizen that you can affect change differently than?
Well, I never promised anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
you don't
probably the first good
have,
thing as a politician.
Yeah, you have pillars that you run on. Basically, for me, I just because of my experience, which I wasn't sure if would help me or hurt me, but I never finished my college degree. So because I was a single mom and I did go to TCC. I took classes. I had a year when I first got out of high school, but everything then I was trying to take off in my mortgage career. I never just had that opportunity, and now it's kind of like, why would I go back? Because I've already built this career.
You're in a pretty secure group of people who
Yeah.
haven't finished their education. I being one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have my undergrad either. Most people don't know that. I've
Yeah.
got a lot of hours.
Yes.
And a lot of technical training. But we're in good company with some folks like Bill Gates and
Yes.
Steve Jobs.
Yes.
God
Actually,
rest his soul.
Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would say, well, 1 year in Harvard's like, 6 years
Yeah.
in an MBA.
He's still a pretty smart guy.
Right. I wasn't building computers in my garage. So. But no, I mean, I think more so today, which is maybe that's a track we go here with education that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to just give you my opinion. I'm going to shoot darts here for a minute. Yeah. And where they land. And my mind could be changed in what I'm about to say. But I think the current education system is severely flawed in terms of how we score and teach young people, especially SOLs. I think SOLs are... Excuse my French.
I think teachers would probably agree with that too.
And then they are under massive stress to score this student to a standard of learning that I'm not sure necessarily. Like Lizzie, permanently disabled, my youngest daughter. She had an SOL, but she had an IEP.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm like, folks, you're scoring her to something that just doesn't compute, and it doesn't even compute with her with an IQ that doesn't measure.
Yeah.
So how, as a board member, would you say to citizens and to your teachers and decision makers, superintendents, knowing that the system needs some massive overhaul and changes, and COVID, that science experiment with COVID, being kids have been home in front of Zoom.
Oh, that's been another big
cameras
issue.
off.
Yeah.
I've heard all the complaints
Yes.
with friends, neighbors whose children, they feel like maybe they're set back 2 years.
Yeah.
What are you hearing as a...
Oh, well, certainly. I mean, certainly there's that learning gap that has happened for sure. There are some, I just want to point this out, that have really thrived virtually. And we are going to continue a virtual Virginia option for those people that want to stay
Really?
virtual. It's through the state. So the subjects probably are not going to be as inclusive as we'd like, but yes, they can still get their education virtually if they choose to. So they'll still have that option.
Is 2 + 2 still going to be 4?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
So we're not changing, in Virginia Beach, we're not changing the curriculum.
I got to tell you, so I talked to my son. I was complaining
I
about
told you,
that.
I was going to bring it back.
Yeah.
I haven't left that
So
yet.
and I actually talked to him about that because it stinks when you can't even help your kids with their math, which should be it should be something that you could help them with up to a degree because let's face it, 2 + 2 is 4, right?
Yeah.
But he said, and I asked him, I said, what do you think about that? The way that the new model, the new concept for math. And he said, well, at first I really didn't like it, but then I can kind of see how it does help because it makes you explore, how you got there and not just that you're not just memorizing. You're kind of exploring. So I don't know. I'm still not completely bought in on that, but I do want to say there really quickly though. You had asked about the learning gap and stuff like that, and Virginia Beach has a ton of camps that we are trying to. So if you've got kids in school, please look onto vbschools.com at what camps are available to the kids. We've got 2 schools that are going to be open for summer school.
Okay.
But I think that as a division, we're doing a great job. And that's also what I wanted to say is through being on the board, I really thought we did a great job as a division when my kids were in school. I just can't even tell you how proud I am of what we do here at BBCPS. I've done the tours for facilities. I mean, the day that I went in to do the tour for transportation, they had like 80 some bus drivers call in sick. And, you know, that's a lot of bus drivers. I think that we only have like 186 or something. I mean, the numbers are off.
Yeah,
So,
like
I mean,
40% of your workforce.
Yeah, 40% of your workforce. So there are 3 dispatchers that are sitting in that office that are rerouting everybody. I think when parents understand, they're looking at it from their child's vantage point. But as a division, we are so amazing as a division.
Yeah.
And you had asked about CRT. In my personal opinion, I'll probably get some pushback on this, but my personal opinion is we are not actively teaching CRT, which, by the way, is thought of a little bit differently in the textbook
And critical
definition.
race theory is what you're talking
about.
Okay.
So we are not actively, advocating or doing that kind of thinking in Virginia Beach. There have been instances, teachers, different teachers, different administrators that have taken upon themselves to not have good discernment when it comes to some of the topics they're talking about or some of the books they want to read and things like that.
Yeah.
So there are little instances that pop up, but I just want to say, again, if you hear about those things happening, let us know so we can do something about it, because there is.
And how do you police that? Maybe that's not a great word to use, but in my mind's eye, like culturally, you and I have, even though you're Korean, we probably had a very similar upbringing culturally.
Yeah. Yes.
But a person who grew up in the Bronx or grew up in Los Angeles, who migrate, and we have a lot of migration into our area because of military.
Yeah.
So from teachers to students. So if you have a teacher who culturally gives an opinion in the classroom versus saying, the thing that gets me today, Jennifer, is that I hear people say, this is my truth.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, can we hit pause? Are you saying this is your opinion?
Yeah.
Let's not.
Experience.
Because, right,
this is my experience.
Opinion in Webster's does not say anything about truth.
Yeah.
It's your experience.
Yes.
It's your culture. It's your upbringing.
Yeah.
It's your choice. But I think sometimes what parents think is happening is that where there is this cultural exchange from teacher to student or from student to student, that then all of a sudden that's being taught.
Well, okay,
in a classroom.
This is what I'm going to tell you, just again, as someone who grew up as a minority. Would I say that there are times that I wish a teacher would have been a little bit more sensitive to the fact that I didn't really want to be pointed out when they were talking about, an Asian country, because I already felt like very unique already.
Yeah.
Yes, I certainly think that you should probably look at someone in a different light. And I think that is where, some of the training that's happening right.
If I can add to that, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just did, so I apologize.
It's okay.
But it made me think.
It's your show.
It's really your show. It's about you today. But where I can empathize with that is the era that we grew up in.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South, and my uncle was a World War II veteran, fighting Japanese.
Yep.
And so he had more disdain, and I want to preface this with, in the South, you would think a white man in the South would have prejudice for a black man in the South. He had more prejudice for
its experience,
the Orient,
yes,
than he had for a black person. And people go, Kenny, what the heck are you talking about? But that's
it's
culture.
true. So I'm going to tell you, my brother lives in South Carolina, and honestly, I kind of joke him because he, when I got divorced, he was like, Jen, just move down to, and I said, I was just like, oh my God, everybody's going to be like, you want to do my nails? Because that's really the only experience they have with Asians, they're in his small town. Again, he comes from a small town as well.
Yeah.
And, and I, absolutely. So when I hear some people say that, racism doesn't exist or, prejudice doesn't exist, I say
Yeah.
that's not true,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if if you're Asian or you're white, or we all have prejudice just by looking
Right.
at somebody. I mean, if somebody has a
But
nose
that's
ring
words
or
that I think we need to correct in society is that
Yeah.
racism doesn't equal prejudice,
right,
right? I'm not here to extinguish your race,
Yeah.
or a black race, or a
Right.
Jewish race. But I am here to say I can't apologize for being an Irish
That's
kid
right.
that,
And Irish, actually, for a long period of time.
enslaved
Yes,
by
yeah.
the English.
Yes. So, I mean, so that's what I do want to combat, though, is that two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
We don't want to create a
But you know what two
situation.
rights make?
A right.
An airplane.
Oh. That's funny. I would not. I would have never gone that.
Yeah.
But so funny. But yeah, so I also don't want to get to a situation where we're trying to make anybody feel badly about things that have happened in the past, because they can't control that either. So I do have kind of a unique perspective, because
Yeah.
I would say that I have felt some prejudice in the past. So I know what
Yeah.
that's like, and I don't want that to happen. That's obviously not right. But I also don't want to swing the pendulum so far that now, like, everybody feels bad about themselves. We should
Yeah.
all be happy about the person we are, and and learn from the past, but not try to.
I think the best
Overcorrect.
thing, if it could be possible in the Virginia Beach school system, would be to do not just a field trip to the zoo, but can we create cultural experiences for our kids to be able to see how other people live,
Yes.
even in other societies or in other cultures, like going to another country and being the white guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you all of a sudden then start having sensitivity for a person who would be Asian in a all white town? And I think that's just where we need to be able to get people outside of their bubble.
Well, so I want to tell you, we were talking. I was just actually at Myrtle Beach this past weekend. So I was talking to my brother, and he was talking about a field trip that they went on, and how they had to. It was in the Appalachian Mountains, I think, and so they had to remove their prejudice about the way that these people lived, because they said, these people that grew up in the mountain, they can't even fathom, what it's like to have indoor plumbing,
Yeah.
or what it's like to go to a job and wear a suit that's just not their life. They can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So, you go through training before you go to be a volunteer here, because you got to know, first of all, what you're getting into, but also that you don't want to put your prejudice on them and make them feel like their way of living is wrong.
Right.
That's what their way
Yeah.
of living is.
Yeah, my father was a Baptist minister.
Yeah.
And I remember this missionary he brought in from Papua New Guinea.
Oh, yeah.
And the folks there in this one tribe, the women still walked around with no tops on. And no one told them they were naked.
Right.
No one told them that, having
You should be
their
embarrassed.
boobs out,
Yeah.
that they should be embarrassed. But
Yeah.
culturally, it was that way. And for the missionary spouse, to have a blouse on, they were like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah, you were kind of like,
And so they're looking that way. But
yeah.
yeah, I've heard that before about the Appalachian Trail and just the massive poverty that's in
Yes.
that area, and for people to be able to relate to that, it's the culture shock, I guess,
Yeah.
is the word I can use. But
So-
so how did they respond to that? And
Well, I think they were very grateful to have these people come in and, help them build houses or do whatever they needed to do. But again, it's just that, to me, in fact, I was reading, I think I told Jordan this yesterday, but we were coming home, and on the billboard it said, "A house divided cannot stand." Abe Lincoln said that,
Yeah.
right? And it said, "Courtesy is contagious, pass it on." And I think that in this culture right now, this divided culture, when everything seems to be so amplified and, everybody's frustrated about something, I think back to the lady from America's Got Talent got a 2% chance of living, but she has an amazing attitude.
Right.
And she's going for it.
That's
She's going for
beautiful.
her dream,
Yeah.
and she's like, I'm choosing to be happy with whatever time I have,
Yeah.
and this billboard that says, we cannot continue to be this divided and stand as a nation.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out what it is. And so I personally went on school board after I saw what was going on, and I am trying that concept. I am going to show them that courtesy and respect can prevail, and that that we can get along with one another. We might not agree on everything. We certainly don't.
Got to be boring if we all agreed, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, this is I wish it would be a little bit less boring, to be honest. But in the same right, I understand that people have these opinions and they concerns, and I respect that. I'm just saying that help us be part of the solution.
Yeah.
Help us to remedy something that's happening, because there is no perfect school division in the United States. I don't care where you go. Yeah, I mean, people might point to Florida or North Carolina. Okay, they're doing what's good for their state, but we are. With the guidelines that we have from our current governor, we have done the best when it comes to COVID, masking, returning to school. We actually got back to school. So I hope that we can focus on some of the positive things that have happened. And actually, we have a lot of positive things happening in Virginia Beach.
Will we be 100% open in September?
Yes.
So
Face-to-face.
kids will be able to come back to school.
5 days a week.
Plexiglass around them? Or
Possibly. I mean, it depends.
But why?
It depends what the numbers.
All right, so I know you're not a physician, but if we're going to say a vaccine works.
Oh, and let me just say that because we get hundreds of emails about this.
Yeah.
So everybody seems to think that as a division, we have the right to just decide what we're going to do. And the fact is, if we want funding to continue, if we want the things that the state provides, we've got to follow their guidelines. I don't necessarily.
So that they give you stipulations like
yes,
that, where they
yes,
go,
yeah, there
hey,
are guidelines.
look, Jennifer, if you don't follow this guideline, we're not sending you a check.
Well, or funding might, go away, or, so I just want to remind people that we do have to follow Virginia Department of Education. And so, and the governor's orders. And so when a lot of people just, make your own decision, well, it's not, and that's one thing that I found being on school board. It's not as easy as just snapping your fingers and making something happen. There's a lot, it's government. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen in order to make this one pivot. So with that being said, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that I think personally, the people that we have running VBCPS, the ladies I work with on the board, again, I don't always agree with them, but I do feel like everybody's intent is good. Everybody is there because they do care about teachers, students, kids, administrators. So I think that the intent is there, the heart is there in the right place. But we have really tough issues to deal with.
Yeah.
And when you're the one having to make that vote or make that decision, it's not as clear-cut and easy as you think it might be sometimes.
Is the school board a position that's completely volunteer, or is it a pay for? Do you get stipend or
Yeah, we get $1,000 a month on the school board.
Oh, that really pads your pocket for retirement, doesn't it?
So, no, you don't do school board to get
make
rich.
some money. Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the amount of hours that you spend, doing school board is certainly... I could.
How much time do you think you're spending not only just sitting in the council room, hearing issues of the community?
Minimum probably 10 hours a week. But I'm not sure if you've heard, but there are the school board meetings like January and February. We had meetings every Tuesday, and some of those meetings went till 2:30 in the morning. So started at 4:00 in the afternoon, went to 2:30 in the morning. So yeah, it's a labor of love because it's a commitment.
And I would say at that point, can you really make really good decisions when you're tired, when you're grumpy, when you're hungry, when you're thinking about I've got a family to raise, I've got kids. Mm-hmm. Well, we have adult kids now, but still, I'm sure there are people on the board who. There's no way your mind stays engaged in that. I do like 5 meetings a day, and I'm like,
I'm done.
Wasted. So I can only imagine you're doing your full-time job as a mortgage broker, and then going into city council, and you have a tax practice. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Just a small one,
Yeah. Well, even still, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
So let's a couple more questions on the school board, and then we'll get into entrepreneurship.
Okay. Love it.
What is the biggest concern in your mind's eye right now for the city of Virginia Beach and
education?
Education.
Filling the learning gap, doing what we have to do to.
What does that mean? Fill in the blank.
Well, because of the pandemic, there are many who have not thrived doing learning virtually. And so, figuring out when everybody comes back, where we are as a community in terms of, how far back has this pushed, the success that we would hope for. And so getting that as a threshold, and then figuring out what we have to do from there. So,
do you think the federal government changes any of the SOL structure now that if
potentially?
If
I mean,
students
there's been a lot of changes because of the pandemic. So, and I think actually it has brought, I've talked to some teachers and principals who feel like, the communication between maybe administration, because they're more hands-on, they're, asking them more often, how are we doing, So I think there's a few positives that have come out of this and things we've learned as, in education about things that were really helpful. The fact that, the virtual did really create a situation where some students thrived that they didn't realize that was even possible.
Yeah.
And so I think there were a few positives that came out of this, and we want to hold on to them. We want to really, say, okay, this is what worked. Okay, but we're here, and we've got to figure out where we have to go. So I think coming back into the 21-22 school year, it's going to be a situation where we figure out where we are and then how we get past that. Yeah. And I honestly, I feel confident that we'll get there. I mean, I have met so many principals and teachers, and we just have really committed folks working for us, and I think that's great.
I will give a shout out to every teacher, not just Virginia Beach teachers.
Yeah.
And we have
all
a special.
Teachers, yeah.
I love Virginia Beach, great community. But Hampton Roads and U.S. Abroad, I would say that they probably don't get paid enough. And I say probably because I haven't done enough study or research to know. But I would say they seem to be underpaid because I see most teachers go into their own pocket to bring
Yes.
their classroom to a level that they need in order to accomplish their mission.
Right. I really would like a couple of things when it comes to taxes. Right now teachers can take a $250 educator expense deduction on their taxes. I think that's too
$250.
I think it's too low. I think that they should be able to honestly.
They're probably spending that a month for some teachers, especially lower school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, if we can't give them a raise at the local level, just because, again, some people, our budget is approved by city council. So we just approved a 5% raise, which thankfully the city council did approve. So they're getting a 5% raise this year, which we're, so grateful we were able to do that within our budget. But I would like to see just on the federal level, and the state level, on the state taxes as well, being able to take some kind of deductions for teachers, because we obviously know that, they work long hours. They, for the amount of time and work that they do, they probably are putting out expenses, like you said, that they should be compensated for. So if we could figure out something that we could do to help them, maybe in a tax perspective, and I'm going to speak to congressmen out there, let's figure this out, because those are some things that we could do.
It would have to be grabbed at the federal level for it to really have an impact. At the state level, on a gross rate in Virginia is 5.75%, I think. So it would be of little effect.
Yeah. But I mean, if you could take, up to $2,000 and, show the receipts and, or whatever, have it be a true kind of write-off, that might be helpful to them. So.
Well, I think to that level, from a macroeconomic point of view, we're going to see massive changes over the next 4 years anyway, in terms of our tax structure and tax policy.
Oh, we sure are. Yeah.
It's definitely coming down the pike. So that may be a good segue over from the school system into what you're seeing as a mortgage broker and also in the tax world. But capping that off and our chat about the school system today, just a big shout out to all of our teachers.
Yes,
and even for the school, for you guys serving, $1,000 a month, for 10 hours, and one night a month, if you're doing that 4 o'clock to 2:30 a.m., you just earned your stipend, for sure. So thanks for your service there.
Sure.
Certainly appreciate it. Now, alongside of that, you're a professional in your real job as a
Mortgage banker.
Yeah. So, with what has happened in COVID and all of the different relief that has come down the pike, interest rates are still historically low.
Oh my gosh. So in 1999, when I first got into the business, honestly, our rates, I remember
7.5%.
No, they were 9.5%. 9.5%
yeah.
in 1999,
Yeah.
and that was considered a good rate because they had just come down from like 11%.
Right.
So honestly, when I hear people say, "Oh my gosh, the rates are in the threes or in fours," I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Like, this is so historically low. When rates dropped into the low twos,
Yeah.
I was floored. I could not believe that we had actually gotten. I mean, that's almost free money.
Yeah.
That's almost free money. So 2020. I'm just so grateful. I worked like a bear in 2020, but with interest rates being low is my best year.
More purchases or refis?
Refis.
Okay.
Very refi heavy.
Yeah.
And of course purchases, in there as well, because people want to take advantage of the low rates, and they qualify for more, obviously,
Get
when
a
the
bigger
rates are lower.
home, yeah.
Bigger homes. Back then, we still had a buyer's market here, so it was strong for buyers, and that's probably the biggest advice I would give right now to those that are wanting to buy is now you have to think about it more. You have to save. You have to have some money because sellers are not ordinarily paying for closing costs.
Right.
And in fact, I'm seeing a lot of, contracts come in where they're guaranteeing an appraisal. So what does that mean? You've got to have some money to be able to guarantee that appraisal because that is a legally binding contract.
Right.
And so, you've got it. Let's just say that the appraisal comes in 10,000 low because the market is so hot right now, sellers are putting a number out there, because they think that they can get that in this market,
Right.
and maybe they can,
Yeah.
So I would say that you have to be more thoughtful as a buyer now. You have to make sure getting pre-qualified is really important. Before you could maybe come in at the last minute if you have good credit and get pre-qualified.
Right.
Now it's more important to get pre-qualified because you've got to know, hey, what do my numbers look like? What can I really afford?
Yeah.
With the current rates where they are and the monies I'm going to need for cash to close. So I think it's just about preparation now more than anything is preparation and education, which I know that you're a big advocate of.
Yeah. We're working through that for
Yeah.
sure with, trying to get this literacy course off the financial literacy
and
course off the
I'm so excited to hear you doing that.
Yeah. So let me take you back to mortgage product for a minute. You came into the industry in 1999. You probably remember the days where 2006, we were on this run up.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a 580 credit score, you could get 100% financing, maybe 125%.
Yeah.
Negative amortization loans.
100 and probably
pay option plus, and I forget all the products that were out there, but
it's crazy.
What's different now in this inflated market, real estate market, than 2008?
If you look at the two, and just in terms of financing, the market might look similar, but as you just pointed out, the way that you get a loan now is very different. So what we learned from 2010, and there's some good, a lot of frustrating part of what came out of that, because again, the pendulum swung so far, but there was some good that came out of that. And one thing that is probably good is that now we don't just let anybody buy a house.
Yeah.
You've got to follow the guidelines. Back then, I used to say you could throw a loan against a wall and it would stick to something, right? Because we had stated income, stated asset, the pay option arm, and we had all kinds of different products.
Bundle those into those collateralized mortgage obligations.
That's right, and sold them as security.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. And then we had, and a lot of people think it was the mortgage companies, but actually it happened on Wall Street, didn't it?
Yeah.
Overly aggressive.
Yeah.
Wall Street folks, that are stamping the paper A when it's really CD, type of paper. So we don't have that anymore. We have very, I don't want to say strict guidelines, but we definitely have tighter guidelines than we used to. So now you do have to qualify. My company that Planet Home Lending that we brought to Hampton Roads.
Yeah.
They're a national company, but we just started in Hampton Roads 2 years ago. We do go down to a 580 credit score, but you can't just be like straight out of bank,
Right.
that kind of stuff. I mean,
There's some guidelines there.
There are some guidelines.
Kind of like
So
the school board.
yeah.
There's a guideline.
There's guidelines. And, so you do have to, you can't be like, paying late up until the time you apply for a mortgage. You've got to have your stuff back in order.
Yeah.
But there's still some forgiveness there with our company. So I love that because I have always worked with everybody. I kind of pride myself on, if it's a $40,000 mortgage and you want help, I'm helping you.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think education and preparation is so vitally important right now because it is not the 2006 market like it used to be.
Right.
And now we're in a seller's market, and it's not like before where we could be like, oh, okay, we'll just give you 125% financing and we're good, so.
Do you remember the average mortgage that you would do in 2000 or in 1999, like when you first came in the business, what your average mortgage was?
Oh my gosh, I would take anything back then. Oh my God, I was a single mom, and that's what I want to write the book about, the story of me progressing.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had to borrow $50 from a friend when I got divorced, just to buy food for the week. So I was, we talk about salespeople. You need to be hungry as a salesperson. Yeah. I was literally hungry.
Yeah.
So back then when I got into this crazy business, which I'm just so thankful for. But, I literally was just, I was like, what can I do? I was just, anything, what can I learn? What can I do? How can I help you? And so I probably had $75,000 mortgages and, until I worked myself to the point where I started doing $150,000 and then from 150, and then of course you progress in your career and now, I've done up to $1.5 million at this point, but the point is that back then I would have taken any $60,000 to $75,000 mortgage just to have some cash, it's just to be able to support my daughter.
Absolutely. So when you look at what's changed in the mortgage industry, and I know there was the RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, that got revamped again after 2006.
Yeah.
Today, a buyer in the market that we're in today, obviously prices are through the roof. But someone who's renting today and they want this American dream to be a buyer. One of the things you said was pre-qualification.
Yes.
Explain to our audience who might be listening today and never bought a house before. What does pre-qualification look like? What are you asking for?
So pre-qualification is basically giving us enough information to pull a credit report. You provide your income, let us know what your current assets are, give us a little bit of financial background, and then and send in pay stubs and let us look at your documents just to make sure, because you'd be surprised.
Verify what you said. Trust but verify.
Yes, trust but verify. Perfect. Because you'd be surprised at how often people will either go one way and only put down their net income, and we qualify on your gross income, right? Or go exactly the opposite way and then give us every single little bit of overtime, that they're earning it, but they haven't been on their job very long, So it is a good idea to fill in a complete application. That gives us the tools we need. Because I kind of liken our job to an attorney where we package everything, we put your case together, and then we submit it to the judge, which is the underwriter. So, and they make sure that we're doing our job, right? And then approve whether or not, they want to take the risk for the company. And the underwriter is oftentimes, and I've had a few back and forth with underwriters as well, but they're oftentimes looked as the mean guy, the
policy prevention department, right?
Yes, yeah. And so, but their job is to protect the company, make sure that we don't have any buybacks and stuff like that.
So the education for the consumer who's hearing that, the underwriter is really representing the mortgage company.
Yes.
You're representing the buyer or the person you're originating the loan with the consumer. So that underwriter's job is to take this loan and be able to present it to the buyer of those loans to say, hey, we've met all your guidelines.
Yep. Which people don't realize.
Yep.
Yeah, they think that it stops with the underwriter, and that is not true. We get audited by the government, and other companies, whoever, because we have to make this a saleable loan on the secondary market.
Right.
So,
And what that means on the secondary markets, that's going to be turned into a bond,
Yes.
a mortgage-backed bond.
Yep, a security,
Right.
yep.
Yep.
And that's how, we get our pricing every day is based on the MBSs and, the Treasury
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So essentially, there's so much. Like, when you first get in the mortgage business, you're like, I just want to sell this loan, I just want to get this loan closed. But as you progress, in the business, you learn originating the loan is basically step one.
Yeah.
But there's like 20 other steps beyond that happened, after funding occurs. And that's the auditing process, the, packaging the loans up, all that kind of stuff that happens post-closing. So, but of course, the buyer or the agent doesn't care about that. They just want to get the loan closed,
Right.
which is what their primary objective is. And so that's why originators, like myself and other originators, we've got a ton of originators here in Hampton Roads, but, that's what we have to do, our job to package everything up front, be able to sell this loan, because we're really an advocate for you as the buyer, to make sure that, or the consumer, to make sure that we're doing our job and we know our guidelines and we can say, okay, we think that the underwriter is going to sign off on this.
So in that pre-qualification process, a person should have their W-2s, their check stubs, probably 2 years tax returns.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe more.
If you
Ever less?
No. Well, so
Depends on what type of loan?
It depends on type of loan, and we have to put it through something called an automated underwriting system, AUS system.
Okay.
And so we send it to this information into this underwriting system, and they give us an approve or what we call a refer. And so that will tell us basically what other documentation. If somebody is strong, we might only need 1 year W-2 and a pay stub. If somebody's self-employed, we're going to need 2 years of tax returns. And if they're an LLC, then we're going to need 2 years of business tax returns. So it just depends on the type of loan. And that's what, when people are like, oh, well, just give me a generic, you know what? Every single person is so different. So I can give you a generic list of things, but the fact is your specific situation will determine the rest of the documentation required. And I'm just going to ask, consumers out there, if your loan originator asks for something, just know it's not because we're trying to make your life difficult, because it can be a pretty arduous process, right? But we're not trying to make it difficult, but we know what we're going to need based on the information that you provide, to be able to say, okay, well, now this documentation is asking this question now. It's causing us to ask this. So one document might actually cause another document to be requested. So we're not trying to make your life difficult, I promise. We want to get it done as much as you do.
Right.
But, there are systems and guidelines we've got to follow.
So still the traditional products out there, 15-year amortization, 30-year. There's some 40-year products out there now?
No, that's not considered a conforming product anymore.
So conforming is going to be 15 and 30.
20.
What makes a loan conforming?
So as long as they follow these guidelines, then you're considered a conforming product.
Okay.
And then we have non-conforming products, which
allows it to be sold.
Yes.
In the secondary market.
Yes, exactly. The non-conforming products are not what we consider part of that are saleable. And a lot of companies do still have some non-conforming products that are available. But those are going to be based company to company.
Business owners, is stated income still around? Is there
actually the bank statement
no doc
program
or low doc?
The bank statement program has come back. We have seen that on, again, those non-conforming products. So I have seen bank statement programs for those people who, I'm just trying to think of a good example. For those people that are just, getting side money, they just start in your business, and they don't.
1099 type.
Not even just 1099 people, because they're, but those people that are, I'm just trying to give a good example, and right now it's kind of escaping me, but so I have somebody who is working underneath a financial advisor. I'm trying not to get them in trouble, but but they're basically earning, cash right now
Yeah.
that they're, just to kind of do stuff for them. So, they get paid about $2,000 a month, for example.
Yeah.
And so, but it's just, basically cash under the table. And so we're seeing that. But we've got to see 24 months and also get something like called verification of employment that says, so I'm seeing some of those products come back where we do what we call bank statement type of programs. But
Are they limited to how much you will loan them?
well, first of all, it's not 100% financing. You've got to put some money down. And the interest rate is obviously higher because when it comes to
More risk.
That's what it comes down to. It's all about risk.
It's the risk of default. Will this person not pay the lender
Correct.
back?
Yeah.
Which then looks bad on your report card.
Yes.
And that investor is now going, hey,
Yes.
why did this person default and why didn't you catch it?
Well, exactly.
Did you meet the guideline?
Yeah, and what people don't realize is, like the government programs, VA and FHA, you get a score, about how you do and the kind of lending and the kind of defaults you have. You get scored, and you could lose what they call your EAGLE, and basically, so you want to make sure that that's the reason why you're documenting, especially if it's a really tough file, because a lot of times we do want to help those people that have struggled, especially if you've had medical situations and all those. So we do want to help them, but we've got to document everything because when you get audited, they want to see that you did your due diligence to ensure that you made a good credit decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you correlate that into how did that happen where the mortgage business led you to the tax preparation business?
Oh, actually, I was doing taxes before.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So actually, so again, with my military, I was a VITA rep, which is a volunteer income tax assistant. That was one of my collateral duties that I did in the military. And I've always liked math and stuff like that. Maybe because I'm Asian, I don't know. But so I was a VITA rep in the military. And then when you're a single parent, I was just clinging on to anything I could do to make some money. So I worked then I went to H&R Block, and, I already had the basis for doing taxes. So then I went to H&R Block. I worked with them for a couple seasons, many seasons. And then I just, started, people knew I was doing taxes on the side, and so it just kind of grew from there. So my tax business is completely word of mouth.
Oh, wow.
And I don't ask for clients. I don't advertise. It's just, I do it affordably.
So don't mess with you in January through April, right?
I'm
seasons.
pretty much working, 7 a.m. till midnight.
Wow.
And then with school board, it's
Wow.
just
Do you have like a staff that's helping you on your tax side, or is it just you?
it's
You're
just
doing
me.
it. Wow.
I do have an assistant right now that's helping me. Yeah, I finally hired somebody, but
Yeah. So you're a consummate entrepreneur. I mean, you look at an opportunity,
I love it.
you see opportunity, and
that's
you
why I
go
love
forward.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't by choice. I've always worked hard, and my parents grew up in the Depression, so they were not the ones to be like, hey, I'm just going to pay for this. I mean, we had to earn everything we got. So I've worked 2 jobs since I was 16, but
Wow.
so I've kind of always had that work ethic, but the being a single mom really kind of pushed me into figuring out who I was. I like to tell people I would, my friend back then, when I first got divorced, she had a bakery, so I would wash dishes for her. As soon as I dropped my daughter off at school, I would go to the bakery, wash her dishes until she opened up at 9:00. And then she gave me like $20 a day to do that. And so I washed her dishes, and then I go and do whatever other job I was doing. And I mean, I worked 4 or 5 jobs probably, and that included doing taxes. But I say that not because I want you to think, oh, I feel sorry. I mean, because of that, that is why I changed where I am today.
Yeah.
Through hard work, and that's what I like to tell people, is if I can do it with no money, I mean, literally no money, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
All you need is just the fortitude to get to the next day.
Yep.
You just need to be able to push through and just have a goal. Know that I knew that's not where I was supposed to be. And then I've worked for 22 years to change it, and I have.
Wow.
So.
What a great story, and thank you for sharing all
Thank you
that
for
with
having
us
me.
today and being on the show with us. And
Absolutely.
I want to give you a little special gift.
Oh,
I've had in my
I'm so
lap
excited.
here today where you survived the black box today. So a T-shirt for you.
It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I was pretty soft on you there. Right? And we even talked about critical race theory.
I
and
know. That's a tough topic.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the world we live in today,
Yeah.
where we've got a society that's evolving and changing, and we have to be. I think as citizens, we have to be open enough to be able to communicate with people where they're at,
Right.
understand where a person's at, and that I remember this pastor once saying, I think it's a guy named Sean Bowles. He said, you can't have authority over anything in life that you don't love or have love for.
Yes.
And love is not like this fellatio, like, we're
Yeah.
in summer, but the love, the respect, the empathy,
Yeah.
those are all things that are fall under love,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But if you can't have love or empathy for something,
Yeah.
you'll never have any ability to have any authority in that
Right.
person's life. And that's, I think what exudes out of you is that you have empathy for where people are at. And so
Sure.
I'm really excited to know that you're part of the school board
Well,
and
thank
that
you.
the up and coming kids of Virginia Beach.
Well, speaking of that,
yeah.
I do. So I'm kind of on a mission right now. I do, with all of the other stuff that is impacting and coming at us with the board, I feel like I need to do what I can, even the small little wins. So basically, all you business owners out there, I'm going to ask you to help support us. I am trying to get sponsorships for these kids to do field trips. So, for example, I'm taking a group of Renaissance kids to a ball game on the 17th.
Nice.
And so I want to create these wins, even if they feel small, for these kids to have different experiences, like you said, like field trips,
Yeah.
getting out there and just experiencing. Because sometimes it's just that they can't even fathom what the other side looks like, and we just have to show them that, or just have them enjoy. I think one of the sad things because we don't really think about this, right? But there are actually a bunch of kids that are homeless at BBCPS right now. And so for them, I mean, let's just face it, education is nice, but they have some primary needs that need to be met.
Right.
So, having those situations filled. And I think that we do a great job throughout the pandemic. Kids got 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
We did a great job since we weren't doing transportation with buses, with kids coming to school. We used that service to get food to the kids.
Yeah.
So
the school system actually comes alongside of almost a mission of what social services
Yeah.
has, in that if it wasn't for the school system, some of these
Yes.
kids would go hungry.
Yes, that is a big concern.
Yeah.
So I would, and we actually do have an education foundation through the city that we have a lot of businesses that are a part of that. But I would say I would encourage businesses to get involved with that. And I think if I'm going to spend any time, it's going to be on the kids.
How do they get involved? What can they reach out to you?
Yes.
Can they brainstorm with you?
Yes, absolutely.
How do they reach you?
So you can either email me at Jen for school board. You can email me at my campaign account, jenfforvbsb @gmail.com.
We'll put that on the side so they'll have it. Yeah.
Yep. Or you can call me on my phone number, 757-717-6789.
You're brave for giving your phone
I
number out
know,
over the
but
air.
everybody already knows it, so might as well. But yeah, so if you actually texting me on my cell phone is always best, because a lot of times I'm on the phone. But yeah, so I mean, we need people to be part of the solution. We need
Yeah.
people to get out there and actively participate in investing in these kids, because I think that is truly where your time is well spent.
It's the future.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing your
Absolutely.
passion, and,
Yeah.
and we'll try to help in that cause.
Thank
and,
you. I appreciate that.
Employ other business owners to get involved in the community and helping our young people
Thank you.
become better. So thanks for coming
That's
today,
great.
Jen. It was really
Absolutely.
great having you.
Thank you.
Hopefully
thank you for your T-shirt.
You're welcome. Enjoy. Wear it everywhere.
I will.
All right. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Take
Thanks.
care.
I appreciate it.